Welcome. Today we're unpacking a set of sources you sent us, looking for the key insights on a really iconic landmark. We're heading high above Cairo, Egypt, to focus on the Muhammad Ali Mosque. You probably know it better as the Alabaster Mosque.
That's right. And we've got some interesting material here. Bits from Wikipedia on the Cairo Citadel and the mosque itself, of course. Plus a pretty detailed structural study about its restoration, and then various travel discussions, forum posts, that sort of thing. Gives a different flavor.
Okay, so our goal here is to piece together its story. Its history, where it sets, this quite striking architecture, and crucially, some major structural problems it had, and how they fixed them. It's just such a dominant feature on the Cairo skyline. You see it from everywhere.
Absolutely. And to really understand the mosque, you've got to start with its location,
Hmm.
the Cairo Citadel. This isn't just some random hill. It's a huge historical site, started way back in the 12th century by Sultan Salah al-Din al-Ayyubi Saladin. Sultan al-Kamil finished it later. And for a long, long time, this was actually the seat of government for Egypt.
Wow. Okay, so more than just a fortress, it was the center of power, packed with history then.
Oh, definitely. The Citadel all themselves, they've seen countless battles, victories. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's a priceless historical treasure. It's now protected as an archaeological site. And you've got museums up there, too, like the Egyptian Military Museum. That moved in around 1949.
Right. But the Alabaster Mosque, even though it's kind of the star attraction up there now, it wasn't built by Saladin in the 12th century, was it?
No, no, not at all. Big time jump needed here. The mosque was commissioned by Muhammad Ali Pasha. He was the ruler of Egypt in the 19th century, a period of massive change for the country. He wanted something grand.
A statement piece for his dynasty.
Exactly. Our sources say construction probably kicked off around 1832, maybe 1830. It seems it was finished sometime between 1848 and 1857, so very much a 19th century project.
Makes sense. And you can really see that statement aspect in the architecture, can't you? The sources say it's very different from traditional Cairo mosques.
Yeah, it's a complete departure, really. The sources are clear. It was built in an entirely Ottoman style with European influences too, which, really contrasted with the older Mamluk and other Islamic styles you see elsewhere in Cairo. It was a very deliberate choice. Muhammad Ali looking outwards.
Okay, so paint a picture for us. What are the key things that give it that Ottoman look?
Well, the heart is the prayer room. It's covered by this huge central dome. And that dome is held up by four half-domes, or half-cupolas, which sit on arches and big pillars. It's quite an impressive structure. The main dome itself goes up to 52 meters high. And outside you have the two minarets. Very tall, very slender, 82 meters.
Ah, right. Those characteristic pencil minarets you associate with Ottoman architecture.
Precisely. Those minarets, the big central dome, the large open courtyard, the sun, surrounded by a domed portico. These are all flagged in the sources as classic Ottoman elements. One source even mentions the Sultan Ahmet Mosque in Istanbul, the Blue Mosque, as a potential model.
And the famous nickname? The Alabaster Mosque. That's pretty self-explanatory.
It really is. It's the first thing you notice. They used alabaster extensively. It clads the walls inside and out up to a pretty significant height, about 11.3 meters off the ground. So it's not just a little trim, it's a major feature. Gives it that pale, almost luminous look.
Hence the name. What else went into building it? What were the sort of base materials?
Well, the main structure, walls, columns, arches, the domes themselves, that was limestone. And a lot of it apparently came from right nearby, Muqaddam Hill. The construction method is described as a multiple leaf system with lime mortars, basically layers of stone bonded together. And then the domes on the outside, they're covered with lead plates for protection, waterproofing.
Okay, so it sounds like a solid build. Local stone, traditional techniques, yet the sources say it started showing signs of weakness quite early on.
Yes, surprisingly early. By the end of the 19th century, not that long after it was finished, problems were already appearing. The first attempts to fix things were, well, kind of stopgaps, reinforcing some pillars, adding iron rings, trying to hold it all together.
Sounds like patching things up. Did it reach a point where they realized something more serious was needed?
Oh, definitely. It became obvious that these temporary fixes weren't enough. So a major restoration project was launched in the 1930s. It ran from 1931 to 1938. They put together a special technical commission just to investigate what was wrong and figure out a solution.
What did they find? What was actually going wrong with the building?
They did a really thorough job. Surveys, digging around the foundations, testing the materials, running structural calculations. And what they found was pretty concerning. Significant cracks, especially in the northern wall. And they measured actual deflection bending and sagging. The walls were leaning or bulging outwards by up to 10 centimeters. And the minarets, those tall, thin towers, were sagging by around 20 centimeters.
20 centimeters, that's a huge amount for a tall stone structure like that. What did the engineers say was causing it?
The commission pointed to a few things working together. Horizontal forces, basically pushing outwards. Problems with how the internal metal straps were anchored. Rust, corroding metal elements inside the stonework. And also damage from the past, maybe an earthquake, an explosion nearby. Plus just the effect of temperature changes over time. They pinpointed the main source of the cracks in the structures holding up the dome. The arches, the drums, the pendentives, and the main pillars.
Okay, pendentives, maybe quickly explain those.
Ah, right. Pendentives are those sort of curved, triangular bits of masonry you see in the corners under a dome. They're what make the transition from the square base up to the circular dome. Super important structurally. So the problem was traced to these key load-bearing parts. Interestingly, though, they checked the foundations thoroughly and found they were okay. The issue wasn't the ground underneath.
So knowing the cause was in the superstructure, what did they actually do in the 1930s restoration?
Well, their solution was pretty bold, especially for that time. They ended up reconstructing major parts of the mosque. They rebuilt sections of the domes, beams, arches, even the central columns. And they used reinforced concrete. We have sources with photos from the time, and you can see this massive network of steel scaffolding, tons of rebar, the steel reinforcing bars being installed. It was a huge undertaking.
Using reinforced concrete inside a historic stone building like that feels like a major intervention. How did it hold up afterwards? Did they check it again?
Yes, analysis was done after that big 1930s job, and it showed that generally the new reinforced concrete elements were structurally sound. They could handle the building's own weight, static loads, and also dynamic loads like wind. However, that analysis did highlight some small areas, particularly near the semi-domes, that were still potentially vulnerable, specifically under seismic loads. So a big earthquake might still pose a risk there.
And the sources mention this approach using reinforced concrete in historic buildings is seen as a bit controversial.
Yes, in the world of heritage conservation, it definitely is, though it is something that's regulated. Some of the sources, like forum discussions, touch on public concerns about government restoration projects on other historic mosques in Egypt. People sometimes worry about unqualified contractors or methods and materials that might not be sympathetic to the original structure, potentially damaging its integrity or look.
Right.
But specifically for the Muhammad Ali Mosque, the sources say that currently the Egyptian authorities don't actually allow sampling or testing of the structure. The reason given is because that 1930s restoration is considered to have been very well done, and the building is seen as being in good structural condition now, so it implies a certain confidence in that specific project, despite the wider debate.
Okay, let's switch from the engineering challenges back to what it's like now, for someone visiting today.
Right. Well, despite all that past drama, today it's just one of Cairo's absolute top attractions. Yet millions of people visit every year. And that location, high up in the Citadel, is a huge part of the appeal. The views are just incredible. Panoramic vistas across the whole city. You really get a sense of Cairo's scale from up there.
I can imagine just seeing the sprawl of the city below.
Yeah.
What about the experience inside the mosque itself?
It's quite special. You get this blend of history, culture, stunning architecture. But it's vital to remember it is an active place of worship. So that means respecting dress codes, minimum decorum, and definitely taking your shoes off before you go into the main prayer hall. People often mention just sitting on the soft carpets inside, soaking up the atmosphere, maybe listening to explanations.
And is it worth getting a guide?
The sources strongly recommend it, yeah. A good guide can really unlock the deeper history, explain the architectural details, and help you appreciate why the mosque is so significant beyond just being beautiful.
And its importance isn't just about tourism, is it?
No, definitely not. Tourism brings money, obviously, which helps the local economy. But the mosque also functions as a really important point of cultural exchange. It connects people from all over the world with Egypt's amazing heritage, with Islamic art and architecture.
So quite a journey we've taken from the 12th century fortress through Muhammad Ali's 19th century vision, then the near disaster of its structural problems in the late 19th, early 20th century, and finally that really ambitious 1930s rescue mission with reinforced concrete.
Yeah, it's much more than just a pretty building on a hill. It really embodies layers of Egyptian history, huge shifts in architectural style, the constant battle against time and decay, and, the ongoing challenge of how we look after these massive, important historical sites.
Absolutely. So thinking about those severe structural problems it had and that pretty radical solution of rebuilding parts with concrete, What does the story of the Alabaster Mosque really tell us about that difficult balance? The balance between preserving the authentic fabric of a historic landmark and the very practical need to make sure it's safe and stable for people well into the future.